It's day 192. Cheers. And today I will be reading you chapter 1 of The Blue Angel, a blog post crime novel by me. Clara Pym stalked down the train station platform, grasping a vanity case in one gloved hand and adjusting the seam of her nylons with the other. The journey from Melcham had been a tedious affair, too misty to see anything much out of the changing countryside, and a rather bilious woman in tweed who had insisted on squeezing herself into the same carriage. She proceeded to dissect her squashed fly biscuits most of the way to London, explaining, not that Clara wished to know, that she wasn't keen on the fly part. The mist had eventually given way to a dense fog, a blanket, and they crawled slower and slower towards King's Cross, as if the weather was some portent of pending doom, wary of what might greet them. But now she was out on what she assumed was a bustling London street. The fog, having swallowed everything around her, seemed even to suffocate the noise of traffic on the roads. She fished into her pocket for the matchbook her Aunt Terry had given her and tried to decipher the address left on the back in her spidery scrawl. Really, if she had not been so clearly destined for the arts, then her auntie most certainly would have been welcomed with open arms into the medical profession, such was her penmanship. Neon signs were the only thing that penetrated the fog that evening. Some of them bolted to the sides of sandwich bars and late-night tobacconists, some swimming in the gutter by her increasingly spoiled heels. It seemed to be forever and just as many wrong turns before Clara found, by luck more than anything else, the stairwell she was looking for. The blue neon sign at the top depicted a winged goddess with an arrow pointing downwards, and as Clara obediently descended the steps, the sounds of a jazz trumpet swam up to meet her. At the bottom of the steps was a door the same colour as the goddess above, intermittently illuminated by a flickering beam. What kind of blue was that? It's more vibrant than duck egg, less arresting than cornflower. A very particular blue it was. Now at the bottom of the steps, Clara reached for the handle as the door swung open violently, propelling her against the stairwell wall with a fluster of gloves, vanity case and cloche hat. "And you can tell old Ma Lewis to shut her lousy job," yelled a stunning beauty with a severe black bob as she shrugged on a fur coat to cover her underwear. The cat then turned on Clara. "And what do you want?" she demanded, squaring off to her with no attempt to begin buttoning her coat. Mr. Tell. William Tell?" spluttered Clara. "Mister." "Sure," the cat yelled over her shoulder. "Willie, fresh meat!" Follow the smell of gin and desperation. "Good luck, kid. You're gonna need it." And with that, she bounced up the steps, her coat flapping wide of her, and disappeared into the fog. Clara caught the door just before it could shut again and found herself in a long, thin corridor with lined mirrors. Framed in gilt and jutted close up against the next, the high, thin sheets of glass seemed to squeak, filling both sides of the room. As Clara cautiously made her way down the plush blue carpet, peacock, would you call that? Beneath her feet, each pane reflected back to her a grotesque distortion of the young woman she knew herself to be. Here was a ludicrously bulbous Clara, all squat and fat, but with a reed-thin neck you could snap like a twig. Then came a Clara with legs 6 foot long, a corsetineed torso and a melting face and hat, and on as she encountered the mirrors down the hallway, each one more bizarre and unnerving than the next. Was this right? Surely her auntie had been mistaken. Or a joke, perhaps? Was the fog just confusing? Yes. She realised she had somehow come to the end of the corridor. Gripping and clawing her way along the wall like some ridiculous heroine in a tacky B-movie, and standing before her now in +4s and a checkered waistcoat was a woman with the biggest bosom she had ever encountered, even bigger than Cook 2 cooks ago, and hers was massive. "Can I help you?" the woman demanded in a voice of leather and whiskey. "Hello. Yes, I hope so. I'm looking for a William Tell." "I'm Willie Tell." "Mr. William Tell," clarified Clara. "That part's debatable," croaked the leathery one, producing a pipe and stuffing fat fingers of tobacco into it. "What's the story then? Up the duff? On the run? Actually a Russian countess? Out with it, I've got a show to run." Clara faltered. "Story? All the girls have got one. Most of them more far-fetched than their costumes." "Costumes? Is there an echo in here?" "Echo?" The plump leather armchair stared at the flustered girl for a moment, and then bellowed the deepest and heartiest laugh Clara had ever heard. "You'll fit in well. Perhaps we can find you a comedy skit in the early show. Come on, Fanny Bryce, this way." And with that, the armchair turned on one enormous leg and was engulfed by darkness. Clara, who was beginning to feel very much like Alice and starting to wonder if she hadn't indeed fallen through a looking glass in that hall, clutched her vanity case close to her chest, pushed her pink cloche hat hard onto her head, and taking a deep breath, disappeared into the blackness beyond. I'll see you tomorrow, if we're saved.